Welcome to the Joe Cohen Show. Join me as I share my experience with biohacking and invite top health experts to explore the latest technology, supplements, research, and resources for optimizing your body and brain. Hey everyone, I'm excited to be bringing on Christian Drapeau. Did I say that right?
Drapeau.
Drapeau. I knew I didn't get it right.
It's okay.
All right. He has a degree in neurophysiology. He's a leading voice on stem cells who focuses on discovering and developing new ways to enhance human production of stem cells naturally. And that's through supplements mainly, right? Would that be correct? Okay. And so, he's been a pioneer in the stem cells. He's written peer-reviewed articles in journals, and he has a book, Cracking the Stem Cell Code. These findings made him the first to name a new bodily system since the early 1900s. He owns 9 patents related to stem cells and spent 23 years conducting research to better understand the role they play, which is why I'm having him on today. We want to talk about stem cells. What are natural ways, supplements to increase stem cells? There's a lot of people who do, stem cells, expensive treatments, and I've done those as well. And I'm assuming they have their benefits. We could talk about that as well, how they play into getting stem cell injections or stem cell IVs versus the supplements. He's got a bunch of degrees and he's given over 300 scientific lectures on stem cells in 51 countries. And now he's the chief science officer of STEM Regen. So thanks for coming on, Chris.
My pleasure.
Do people call you Chris or Christian?
Mostly Christian, but Chris is fine.
Sorry, I'm making up nicknames as we go here. All right, let's talk about stem cells a little bit. I guess to get started, what would you say are, let's just go through the big picture of what are some of the ways to increase stem cells?
The way to increase stem cells that is probably the most known about or recognized by the general public is that you just go and you get an injection and that suddenly boosts the number of stem cells in circulation through an injection. But there are other ways to increase the number of stem cells. Fasting for more than 3 days will put more stem cells in circulation. There's an interesting, mechanism that is happening with fasting is that during the fast, while you have more stem cells, they are more like or subdued, like dormant. But when you go back into the refeeding phase, then this is when they kick into gear. And it's probably one of the reasons why fasting is so regenerative. So fasting will do this. Intense physical activity will do it. I'm talking about running a marathon or like doing something intense, which is probably simply because you create injuries, micro lesions, and it triggers your repair system. These are really the only ways. And then plants, which has been my work over the past 20 some years, is identifying plants that one of their mechanism of action is to trigger the release of your own stem cells. So these really are the ways known to put more stem cells in circulation.
Okay, so I wanted just a quick overview of that, basically exactly what you did. Let's now step back and say, okay, why should they want to increase their stem cells? What are they going to get benefits from increasing stem cells?
Okay, it's a fundamental question that you're asking because the answer is so big that it's actually sometimes difficult to grasp. What I mean is that oftentimes when I give a lecture, I show a video at the beginning of my presentation. It's a video of it's a group of scientists in Houston. They took the heart from a mouse, completely digested the heart with proteolytic enzymes. So after a few hours, they're left with just like the soft skeleton of the heart, the connective tissue of the heart that still retains the trace that it was a heart. And then they put stem cells from that animal on that connective tissue. And within a week, you get a beating heart and a test tube. Just to show you the amazing regenerative power of stem cells. So the question is, why don't they do this all the time in the body? And in fact, they do this. Everybody has experienced in their life that the body repairs. Everybody has had a broken bone, a cut, an injury of some kind. And they have seen in their own lives the human body repairs. But if I'm to ask you, what do you know in medicine that is the repair system of the body? In traditional medicine, what is repairing? There's no answer to that question. Historically, we'd say to the immune system, tell me which immune cells is in charge for repair. And that's what stem cell research has shown, is that the body as a repair system And this is the role of our stem cells. Since the day we're born, we release stem cells every day, and all day long, they repair all the little things in the body. So as we age, the number of stem cells declines dramatically. By age 30, at some point in our 30s, we've lost up to 90% of our stem cells. So we start now to experience aging. We realize we don't repair and recover as fast as we used to. So putting more stem cells in circulation gives you back the ability to repair that you had, or to recover that you had, let's say 10, 20 years ago. That's really the benefits that you're getting. You're boosting your natural ability to repair.
Okay. And the benefits of boosting your natural ability to repair is if you get injured, you'll heal more quickly. I guess these are the things that are very clear. A lot of people get injuries in their lives. Almost
Uh-huh.
everybody, right? You
Uh-huh.
get some cuts and
Or
burns,
surgery.
just surgeries,
It's a controlled injury.
yeah, exercise-related injuries, it's not going to help in muscle repair, will it?
Of course.
It will, but not like part of regular muscle, like going to the gym. Do you need stem cells to build muscle? Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. I didn't know that.
This is where right now we're almost like gaining grounds a lot on the marketplace, is really talking to athletes or anybody that really go and works out intensely. If you go and work out intensely and you take right after you take some of these plants that trigger the release of your own stem cells, do another round of these plants, let's say before you go to bed, the day after when you get up, you will wonder if you really worked the day before.
Wow.
The impact of that repair is huge in terms of your experience of with recovery. No question.
Okay, so now let's talk about longevity, because these are the things that people notice. You hurt your tendon, you want to repair your muscle, whatever it is. These are things that people can notice. What about longevity? What impact does increasing stem cells have on longevity?
While stem cells are documented, or were documented some 20 years ago, to be the repair system of the body. So we were the first to really propose that stem cells were the repair system of the body. There was a lot of holes in that data in 2001, but the data that was available to me was unmistakable. Like, it was really pointing in the direction that stem cells are the repair system. And it turned out to be what they are. But as scientists studied the role of stem cells in tissue repair, something else was discovered that, to me, is even a bigger discovery than discovering the repair system, is that when there's nothing to repair, stem cells are still being released, and their job is to go and replace the cells that are being lost in various organs and tissues, which has led then to this, I wouldn't call it a discovery because it was known before. Like, I'm sure you've heard these sentences, like you have a new body every 7 years, every 12 years, every 5 years. We've heard about this before, but there was never real data behind this. Now there is. And what we can say is that your body does not as a whole regenerate or renew in a certain amount of time. It's each organ and tissue. You get a new skin every month, a new liver every 2-3 years, half of a new heart every 25 to 50 years. Like, your heart will have about a 1% turnover per year, which is phenomenal, because traditional science says that the heart past 8 to 10 years of age does not repair. It's not true. Stem cell research has shown everything is constantly in turnover. But if you lose stem cells and by age 30 or in your 30s, you've lost 90% of them, there's a point where you don't have enough stem cells to fully offset this day-to-day process of tissue turnover. And so from that point on, you start to accumulate deficits in various tissues. What do you call a deficit in your pancreas when you don't have enough cells making insulin? You call that diabetes. If you don't have enough cells in your heart, it's cardiomyopathy. If you don't have enough cells making dopamine in your brain, it's Parkinson. Every single age-related disease is because you're losing a certain type of cells. So I published this view that one of the fundamental cause of disease formation is this natural decline in the number of stem cells. I published this about 10 years ago, 12 years ago now. And I was saying in this article, there's one way to test if this is true. Go count the number of stem cells in people who have developed various kinds of age-related disease and compare that with healthy people of the same age. And you should see fewer stem cells. Now, probably 50 of those studies have been done. So you take people with heart disease, atherosclerosis, arterial disease in general, hypertension, erectile dysfunction, kidney failure, liver failure, COPD, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, arthritis, lupus. The list keeps growing. All these people have 50% or less than the number of stem cells that you find in healthy people of the same age. So the answer to your question is that when you talk about longevity, The one thing that all centenarians have in common is that they do not develop age-related diseases until a few months before they pass. So they have a long health span before they fall. And that is the hallmark of longevity. So anything that will delay the onset of these problems basically lengthen your lifespan. So you gain more longevity. So stem cells then become, to me, almost like the front line of strategies for longevity, because it basically allows you to keep the health that you have today for decades to come.
That makes sense. And by the way, I think there's this known thing in the longevity research, 12 hallmarks of aging, and stem cells is one of them.
Stem cells is
Right.
one of them, but oftentimes the statement that is made about this is not, is more, how could I say, it's too generalized to really go to the depth of what it really means. One of is stem cell exhaustion. But what is
Stem
the
cell
meaning of
exhaustion,
what is the
exactly.
meaning of stem cell exhaustion? Because there are different levels, if you want, of stem cell exhaustion. You never run out of stem cells in your bone marrow. So your stem cells decline in your bone marrow as you age, but you never run out of them. Your stem cell will age, and an older stem cells is not as effective as a younger stem cells, but you can rejuvenate your stem cells with fasting more than 3 days. So there are ways to rejuvenate these stem cells. The real phenomenon of stem cell exhaustion that is linked to the development of age-related diseases is exhaustion into tissues, meaning you get a tissue that is stressed. Let's say you have a high demand on insulin production for your lifestyle, whatever it is. And there's a point your pancreas starts to be exhausted. It is exhausted and you start to develop diabetes simply because the layer of stem cells in your pancreas taking care of repairing the pancreas is exhausted. From that point on, your pancreas cannot repair anymore unless it is resupplied by stem cells from the bone marrow. But if you're past, let's say, 40, 50 years of age, you don't have a whole lot of stem cells to replenish all your tissues. So those diseases start to advance in their development. So the real impact of stem cell exhaustion is truly the exhaustion in your tissues. But you can remedy this by releasing more of your stem cells and replenishing these tissues.
Interesting. Okay. So now that we have an understanding of how stem cells are related to repair, longevity, let's go a little more into how to increase stem cells. Okay, so let's talk about some plants that increase stem cells. And I also want to understand the magnitude. If we're talking about something that's increasing stem cells, first of all, there might be a difference between, is there a difference between when we say increasing, is it increasing the activity of stem cells or increasing the number, or both?
You can do both, but right now, what has been by far the most documented in the scientific literature is the number. How many of them are in your bloodstream to participate to tissue repair?
Okay. So you increase the number of stem cells. And so what plants or supplements that we can go out, or drugs, pharmaceuticals, let's say, are able to increase the number of stem cells? And what kind of magnitude are we talking about?
So there is one drug that is known to trigger, there's more than one, there's maybe 2 or 3, known to trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. Its generic name is GCSF, granulocyte colony stimulating factor. It is the compound that your body will release when you have an injury to trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. If you inject that in the bloodstream, then it will trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. All the studies that we know of with studying the impact of increasing the number of stem cells on the evolution of a disease or recovery from a disease or from an injury, they're basically using GCSF. So the impact of releasing your stem cells and putting more in circulation has been very well studied. The problem is that GCSF can have fairly serious side effects if it's used for long periods of time. So its application in terms of treatment, tapping into stem cells, is somewhat limited. And that is where the plant turned out to be like a really interesting sort of alternative strategy. And some of these plants are, for example, the first one that I worked with is blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. Did you want to ask something?
Yeah, there's one quick question before we get into this that I think is relevant, is because you mentioned the GCSF. That's stimulating it in the bone marrow. So I guess the other important question is, where are these stem cells being stimulated? Because I think the location also matters. For example, if you're stimulating it in the bone marrow, is that going to help somebody with Parkinson's who has a problem with their dopamine tissues?
Yeah, the fact that your stem cells are in your bone marrow, it's just that physiologically in your bone marrow, stem cells are maintained with telomerase. So essentially, they are immortal in your bone marrow. I'm simplifying it here, but they're immortal in your bone marrow. They're released and then they go into a tissue. And when they get into a tissue, they start the process of proliferation. And then now they're no longer immortal. Aflic limit tells us that, generally speaking, given the length of a telomere, they will go for about 50 generations. And then they
Okay.
reach senescence, and that cell die, and it's replaced by another stem cell. So in your bone marrow, it's almost like your reservoir of stem cells. This is where they're coming from. So the plants that we have documented to trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow, all we can say is that before and after their consumption, we can count in the bloodstream more stem cells in circulation. We don't know where they're coming from. But with all the knowledge about stem cells, the only place they can really be coming from is the bone marrow. But we don't
Got
know
it.
that for a fact. So we simply
Okay.
increase their number in circulation.
So it's not a trivial matter that this GCSF is stimulating stem cells from the bone marrow. It's not just it doesn't matter where it's coming from. It's increasing the circulation of stem cells as a whole, and that's what the relevant factor is in the blood.
Yes, but GCSF, the documentation on GCSF itself, its effect is in the bone marrow. So this one will
Right.
go to the bone marrow and then disrupt the mechanism by which stem cells cling to the bone marrow environment. And when you disrupt that, then they get entrained into the blood circulation and they end up into your blood circulation. So they
But
will.
does that matter how it gets to the blood circulation, or it's just a number in blood
Yep.
circulation?
It's the
higher
number.
the number.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's
just
the
a
number in the
Okay.
blood circulation. And that is why a stem cell injection is also just as valid, because it simply increases the number of stem cells. There are differences, but for the sake of the discussion, the outcome is the same: more stem cells in circulation.
Okay. And actually, now that we're talking about it, you're saying, yeah, basically there's a bunch of ways you could do this. You could go about this. Getting a IV of stem cells is one of them. There's different companies that claim that their stem cells are the best. There's, first of all, autologous, pluripotent. What kind of stem cells are we talking about have the most impact for healing? Like, what would you look for if you wanted to get an IV stem cell therapy? And by the way, do you do that regularly, IV stem cell therapy? No. Okay, why not?
If I answer your question straightforward with numbers, you will get 100 million stem cells for, let's say, $20,000. And if you take the kind of product that I've developed, 2 capsules will make you release 10 million stem cells on average. Do this for 10 days for maybe $20, $50, and you will have released 100 million stem cells. You continue for the rest of the month, you will have released 300 million. Do this twice a day, you have released 600 million of your own stem cells.
Got it.
And do this for 6 months, then it's 3 billion stem cells that you have released.
Right, I see what you're saying. Okay.
And it's physiological, meaning it's not a huge bolus of stem cells on one day, with about roughly a recognized survival rate of about 15%. It's your own that you release consistently every day, basically boosting your ability to repair physiologically every day. So to me, it appears as I wouldn't say more interesting. Let's just say, to me, it's enough.
More cost-effective solution.
More cost effective, but there's also an argument to basically say your body is not designed to get this bolus of stem cells in one day, but it's designed to use stem cells every day in tissue repair. So when you just increase the number of stem cells every day, the impact on your overall ability to repair can be quite significant.
Got it. Okay. So now let's get into the meat of things, where exactly which plants, because I feel like fasting for 3 days, not very practical. And
Well, you cannot
there's
do
also a
this.
lot
You
of
cannot do this
downsides.
all the time, for sure.
There's a lot of downsides. And let's say somebody fasts for 3 days. How many stem cells? I want to try to understand the magnitude of one thing to the other. So, like, when you get an IV, how much are you getting in that bolus typically? 100 million, you're saying?
100 million to 200 million, but 200 million, you're getting into the much more costly type of treatment. Yeah. And it
Okay.
depends. It can go low. Quite frankly, that language is extremely ambiguous today in the marketplace because of regulations. I'll leave it there. So you never really
Okay.
know how many stem cells you're truly getting.
Got it. So we're talking about, okay, so let's say 1 to 200 million stem cells from one shot from some IV therapy. Fasting, how many are you getting around?
Fasting, we have to be careful here, because when you inject a number of stem cells, you know how many you have injected. If you have good quality control, you have a good product, then you know how many you've injected. It's not always the case. But let's say you inject 100 million. You have injected 100 million. When you're fasting, you release them, they migrate into tissues, you release more, and overall, you have a sustained increase in the number of stem cells in your bloodstream that can go for days. So, how many really have been released? It's a very hard thing to document and to be able to quantify.
Okay.
Because all we do, it's a little bit like you take your bank account, and I'm saying, I'm going to count how much money is in the bank account. And at some point, I put $100,000. You see the $100,000 in your bank account, but fasting is going to put, I don't know, $2,000 every hour. But then it's because that money is used to repair and do other things in the body. So you look at your bank account, it never reached 100,000. So you'll say it was less. But do this for long enough, and the number of stem cells that have actually been released and contributed to repair can be quite significant, if not equivalent or even more than an injection.
Okay, so you're
it's
saying maybe
significant.
it's
Double.
significant, but let's say maybe we're thinking in the realm. I'm trying to even just get an order of magnitude here.
About
Like,
5 to 10
is
million.
it in the realm of
5 to 10 million more stem cells that you can count at any one point in time into your bloodstream? But
And
it's
that's
not a
after 3
bolus.
days?
Sorry?
That's after 3 days.
After 3 days. And keep in mind that your 100 million stem cells have a survival rate of about 15%. So there's really 15 million that are now really active into your bloodstream.
You're saying if you take a bolus, only 15% are only going to...
That's the estimation. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is still significant.
And you're talking about 5 to 10 million with fasting. These are active ones?
Yeah, you've released them. So because when you release them, okay, here's a little bit of the physiology of it. When you inject stem cells into a vein, so systemically, the first place that they will go is into your venous circulation. So it'll go to your lung. So when it goes into your lung with all the very, very small blood vessels, a lot of the larger stem cells get captured and basically lyse and they die. They don't make it through. When you release them through your own blood circulation, they circulate in the body before they get to the lungs. So you get a different physiology there.
Okay. So what we're saying is basically, if you're getting that bolus, you're still probably going to get more than a 3-day fast, but it's not going to be like 5 times more. Maybe it's double or something, or it's within the same ballpark.
I think you're probably going to get more with a fast.
Okay, fine.
I think.
But again, fine. Let's say more with a fast, but it's either way. You think it's going to be within the same ballpark. It's not going to be one is going to be 10x different than the other.
I think they're all. And the thing is that they're also personal variations. So it's not always the same thing for everybody. And there's also the fact that if you release your own stem cells, let's say at 50, these are 50-year-old stem cells. So one of the big arguments to go and get either fat-derived stem cells or umbilical cord stem cells is that now you get a boost with younger stem cells. A lot of these stem cells will go back to the bone marrow and they will feed a new strain, a new niche of cells. So you will have part of your stem cells now for the rest of your life that will be these younger stem cells. So there's another component that is present when you do a stem cell injection. So at the end of the day, when you consider everything else, there's just a lot of pros and cons in these approaches. It becomes personal as to what one chooses to do, but they're all quite significant. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I guess the older somebody is, the more they might want younger stem cells.
Correct.
Being injected.
Correct.
Okay, got it. So, yeah, I guess that sets the perspective. Now let's get into. Are you aware of hyperbaric and stem cells? Because we didn't mention that. Okay.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? Yeah, in terms of how much are we talking about for hyperbaric?
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. Hyperbaric is a way to put more stem cells in circulation, which works in really good synergy with the kind of plants that I documented also release stem cells, because the mechanism of hyperbaric chamber is to really promote and stimulate the proliferation of stem cells in the bone marrow. So as the population increases, then they're more susceptible to get released and get into the blood circulation. So if you stimulate that release now with plants that don't have an effect on the proliferation, but on the release itself, then you couple these two together and you get a really nice synergy. But hyperbaric chamber will put more stem cells in circulation and within the same kind of order of magnitude. Let's say double to triple the number of stem cells in circulation. And when I say double to triple, you have, let's say as a 50-year-old, you have roughly 10 to 12 million stem cells in circulation. So we're talking about putting another 10 to 20 million stem cells.
Which is more significant than fasting, it seems.
Probably more significant as a because again, hyperbaric will be like a short-term effect. So you're fasting, if you fast more than 3 days, let's say you
Mm,
do this for 6 days, during those 3 days of full fasting, when you've started the process of stem cell release, it continues all the time. So it's a sustained release. So at the end, these are very difficult to quantify.
and how long do you need to do hyperbaric in order to get that benefit?
It's after a session, and hyperbaric will go
After one
not a
session.
whole lot longer than 90 minutes.
Okay. So at least it's not right. So it's one session. You don't need to go through 30 sessions in order to feel it. Each session you do
Well,
can give you some.
hyperbaric chamber, its mechanism of action, we discovered after the fact that it has this effect on stem cells, but it has a huge effect on oxygen supply to all organs and
Mhm.
tissues. Just to go back into some super basic science, the amount of oxygen that can be dissolved into your plasma depends on the solubility of oxygen into your plasma. And that depends on atmospheric pressure of oxygen pressure. At our atmospheric pressure, there's about 3% the oxygen that can be dissolved in the plasma. The moment you go into hyperbaric chamber, suddenly you boost the amount of oxygen that can go into your plasma. So you do this long enough and you start to really feed all your interstitial fluid everywhere in your brain, everywhere with more oxygen. And that is probably the main benefit of hyperbaric chamber. And typically, if you want to do a round of treatment, the miracles that you hear about with hyperbaric, it's after a good number of them, let's say 30, 40 sessions that are done, let's say 3 times a week. So it's a sprint of these sessions over probably 2, 3 months that gives you the kind of benefits that have been reported. It's not really a one-time treatment.
Got it. Okay. Now let's get into the plants, right? I wanted just a general understanding of fasting, hyperbaric, injections. Now, what was there anything else that we just forgot? Because I just want to put it into perspective when we're going to go into the plants.
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything. You were mentioning
Okay.
before what kind of stem cells we can get. I wouldn't say complicated, but I'm not sure if it's worth going into this. You have umbilical
Yeah, we
cord
don't have
stem.
to go into
Yeah.
we don't have to go into the details of that. So the plants, how many plants are proven to increase stem cells or supplements in general?
To my knowledge, at this point, 6 plants that have been shown to
Okay.
increase the number of stem cells in circulation. The
And these
first
are in
one,
humans or in animals?
we have done all of our work in humans. And I believe, yeah, and then one plant, cacao, that we did not do the work. I think it was done in human as well.
Okay. So let's just go through the list of these, and then I would like to go through what do you think is the most powerful, second most powerful, give them a hierarchy, and then we could go into the details of each of them.
So the first one, not necessarily the most powerful, but it's the one that lift the cover on all of these, of all of this science, if you want. The fact that plants could stimulate the release of stem cells from the bone marrow, and that's blue-green algae from Klamath Lake. So I started to
Okay.
work on this in 1995, and around 2001, we discovered that the mechanism of action was to trigger the release of stem cells from the bone marrow. When we completed all the studies on mechanism of action, active compounds, proof of concept, all of this around probably 2005, 2006, then I started to look at other plants that would have the same effect. So we looked at plants that had been associated historically with a broad variety of health benefits, things like goji berry, medicinal mushroom, adaptogens. They all have an effect on stem cells. But the ingredients or the plants for which we really saw a very significant release was, for example, aloe macroclada from Madagascar. They have 65 species of aloe, but they use only one to make a product called Vahona, used for centuries for a broad variety of health benefits. So we collected aloe macroclada from Madagascar, tested it, and it probably about doubles the number of stem cells in circulation within 2-3 hours. Then
Oh, wow.
in order of efficiency, probably notogensin comes right after. Along the same line, but these studies were done in animals. Along the same lines in humans, sea buckthorn berry from the Tibetan plateau has been also shown we documented it, probably
Sea
increased by like
buckthorn?
sea buckthorn berry
Okay.
from the Tibetan
Not
plateau.
the oil. There's like an oil also, right?
Yeah,
Sea
it has
buckthorn.
also, yeah, the kernel as an oil, but you can extract the oil, but you can also extract the polyphenols from the
Right.
whole fruit.
So
And it's in the polyphenol fraction, we have a polyphenol in there that triggers stem cell release from the bone marrow, which is the same kind of mechanism of action that you see with cacao. That has been also the polyphenols, the flavonoids in cacao have been shown to do that as well.
cacao is just cocoa, like raw
Correct,
cocoa?
correct. But
Okay.
I mean, there's different names here. Cocoa is oftentimes like the drink. So I'm referring here
Mhm.
really as an extract from the seed.
Okay, got it.
Then
Okay.
fucoidan, which is a polysaccharide from various brown seaweeds. So fucoidan from Undaria pinnatifida, from Fucus vesiculosus were documented to have an effect to release stem cells from the bone marrow. So these are like the top five ones that I have studied over the years. Foti or Fotai, Ishuwu in Chinese medicine does that as well. Goji berry stimulates the migration of stem cells. So we've studied a number of plants over the years, but those five are really the top ones that we have documented.
So let's just go through them quickly again. There's blue-green
Blue-green
algae.
algae, sea buckthornberry from the Tibetan Plateau, Allomacroclada from Madagascar, notogensin, and then fucoidan from brown seaweeds.
Okay. Out of those, I only take the fucoidan.
From which seaweed?
Okay. I think it's brown seaweed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or,
they are different.
yeah. I just take the extraction. It's like a 70% fucoidan extraction.
Yeah, they're all pretty much 70%. I would be inclined to believe that probably all fucoidan do it, but the one that have been documented in the scientific literature to do it is from Undaria pinnatifida and from Fucus vesiculosus. Otherwise, you can have also laminaria, fucoidan from laminaria, fucoidan from ascophyllum, what rock seaweed I think they call. And then there's another one, the name is escaping me. I forgot the name. It comes from not Vanuatu, but these islands in the neighborhood of Australia. Polynesian
Okay.
island.
I also see that you have beta glucans. Is that something that increases stem cells?
When we were studying all these plants, I wanted to study obviously medicinal mushroom. My strategy was to look for plants that had been historically associated with a broad variety of health benefits. Because if you release stem cells, these stem cells will go to the pancreas of the diabetic, the heart of the heart patient. They repair. So they go to whatever needs to be repaired. So historically, it would have been associated with many benefits. So medicinal mushroom is one such product. So I started to study like shiitake, reishi, cordyceps, lion's mane, and then we saw that they all had a very interesting effect, which at first we thought was a mistake in our protocol. So it took us a while to realize that it was a real response. Is that within about 30 minutes of consumption, you see a very quick drop in the number of stem cells in circulation. And as we studied the phenomenon more, we saw that these polysaccharide, which is beta-glucan, increases the density of the receptor at the surface of stem cells that stem cells use to identify the SOS molecules coming from an injury. So if you amplify the ability of stem cells to respond to that signal, then they migrate and leave the blood circulation faster and more effectively. So the moment we discovered these kinds of plants, then to me, the thought was, if we want to really repair tissues, we want to release stem cells, but if we can drive them into the tissue, then we amplify the overall repair response. So then I started to blend the compound that release stem cells with those that stimulate their migration. So the two products that are the top to stimulate migration in the work that we have done is beta-glucan, 1,3-beta-glucan, and colostrum. Highly fractionated colostrum is the other ingredients that we have in release.
Got it. Okay, understood. And which part of could it be beta glucans from anything? There's beta glucans in oats. There's beta glucans in nutritional yeast. There's beta
I
glucans
don't think so. I think that
medicinal
at
mushrooms.
least for a stem cell effect, the one that has been documented so far is from mushroom, the 1,3. So you get from oat and from yeast, you get more like 1,6. So it's the 1,3 that seems to be the most effective. So it's what you find mostly into mushroom.
Okay, and which part of the colostrum supports stem cell migration?
I cannot tell you
Yeah.
exactly which kind this is. This is a sort of proprietary ingredient that is developed with using colostrum from free-range cows, like in the Dakotas. And they have a process where they do highly fractionated colostrum. So it really separates all the growth factors. So you can buy colostrum on the marketplace, like wholesale, for maybe $30, $50 a kilo. This is $800 a kilo colostrum. So it's called colostrum because that's what it is, but it's a very high-end product in terms of extract.
Got it. Okay. So it's really concentrating certain elements,
Correct.
factors. Now let's go through. Okay, so fucoidan we discussed that helps. That's its ingredients. What in Panax notoginseng increases stem cells?
It's the ginsenosides. It's the class of actives that are found in ginseng. Now, the work that has been published does not specifically indicate which kind of notoginsenoside, but they are some of them that have been pointed out. I think it's like RB3. I would have to go back to the literature, but it's a class of actives that you normally find in ginseng.
What does it have to be? Ginseng? Like there's Panax ginseng, American ginseng, and Noto ginseng. Those are three kinds of
Yeah,
ginseng.
and Korean
Um,
ginseng and Siberian ginseng, and
right.
they're all different.
Those are
Like
not the yeah.
Yeah, Siberian ginseng is not truly ginseng. The
Exactly.
other ones are. All I can say is that the one that has been documented to have an effect on stem cells is Noto ginseng, which is really the traditional Chinese ginseng, the one that takes 7 years to grow. After you harvest, you need to keep the land fallow for what, like 3 years to allow it to recover. So it's more expensive, but that's the one that has been documented to have an effect on stem cells. Is other ginseng also having the effect? I can't tell. It has not been tested.
And are you using you're using an extract,
Correct.
I guess, for the ginsenosides, the
Correct.
Noto ginsenosides?
Correct.
Got it.
20%. We use it concentrated 20% ginsenosides or noto ginsenosides.
Got it. Okay. And so you're saying could be other ginsenosides help, but it just wasn't tested.
It could be other types of ginseng, like American ginseng,
Mhm.
Korean ginseng. But yeah, to my knowledge, they have not been tested.
Got it. And what is the stem aloe here?
Stem aloe is the aloe macroclada. So it is the ingredients that I documented before. And we branded it simply because the moment you say aloe, everybody thinks aloe vera. And when you test
Right.
aloe vera, you really don't get the same effect. I'm not saying that it cannot have the same effect, but the magnitude of the effect is by far not as significant. So we picked it up immediately in aloe macroclada, and it's so far the strongest ingredients that we have used. And we branded it just for better recognition. So the moment
Got
that
it.
this was discovered, this is an ingredient that did not really exist on the marketplace. So we had to go and develop, with a colleague of mine, develop the harvesting, cultivation. They have replanted so far probably about 300,000 plants in the wild because it's harvested from the wild. There's a long story here of how this ingredient was made possible. But so we're the only one really carrying this product for stem cell application.
Got it. Okay. And what is the active ingredient in there that is increasing the stem cells?
It has never been documented what is the ingredient, but generally speaking, we cannot say 100%, but generally speaking, asamanins, those huge polysaccharides, are most of the time the active compounds for the immune system. Stem cells are generally part of the immune system in the sense that they are lymphocytes. So far, the best assumption is that it's the asamanins that have this kind of effect. But asamanins can come in various molecular size, various fragments, like they're not all the same. So there is something specific to aloe macroclada that makes that aloe more active, if you want, in terms of releasing stem cells. We don't know exactly what it is.
Got it. Okay. And your stem berry, what is that different from, let's say, so that's the sea buckthorn
That's the
berry.
sea buckthorn
And
berry.
you're taking polyphenols and anthocyanidins. What if somebody were to just take polyphenols from grapeseed extract or bilberry or blueberry or any kind of anthocyanidins?
We would need to test them. At this point,
Okay.
that's the interesting in stem cell research to me, is that we first start to look at it and it looks like exceptional. The more we study it, the more we realize it's really part of our everyday life. Release them when you do intense physical activity, fasting, smoking inhibits their activity, drinking inhibits their activity, stress inhibits their activity. And we know that stress is bad for health, smoking, drinking. So you start to realize everything is tied to your ability to repair. Just so many things have an effect on your immune system. You realize that it's everywhere. And the more we do these studies, the more we realize that there's a lot of stuff that can influence stem cells. But from a purely scientific standpoint, until it's tested, then we cannot tell if it's doing the job. So far, I'm not aware that blueberries or any of these other berries have been tested. The only product.
Why would they test these random stuff? I feel like
It's not
it's
random.
like
It's not random. It's the
okay.
testing comes from, for example, as we're looking for plant that can be associated with many benefits. At some point, I'm traveling in China, and I asked 3 different biochemists, Chinese biochemists that had studied the Chinese pharmacopoeia, and I asked them, okay, you're lost on an island, and the only thing you can bring with you, it was my way of formulating the question so that they can give me one answer. I wanted a quick response. But you're lost on an island, you can only bring one plant from the entire Chinese pharmacopoeia. What would it be? In the back of my mind is that plant that they would choose because it's good for many things. Maybe its mechanism of action is stem cells. I'll go and test it. The three of them told me sea buckthorn berry. I was very surprised. I was not expecting that answer. So I dove into the scientific literature on sea buckthorn berry. And indeed, you see reports for 2,000 years. It's used for lung disease, heart disease, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, to speed up the recovery from injury, from bone fracture, burn to the skin. So as you see this broad spectrum, it's telling me possibly there's an effect on stem cells. So I connected with a farmer on the Tibetan Plateau. We derived an extract and then we tested it and we saw a very interesting response on stem cells. So I'm not aware that there are all this broad variety of benefits on blueberry, for example, or raspberry or other berries. Maki berry, yes. So possibly we know now that maki berry, for example, contains a kind of polyphenols that stimulates autophagy. So, the more we dig, the more we realize these polyphenols have amazing potentials. They're not all having an effect on stem cells, but a number of them probably do. So far, we have documented sea buckthorn berry. Another team has documented something similar with cacao.
Got it. Okay. And let's say this blue-green algae, what is the active ingredient in there? And for example, if we take spirulina or chlorella, you think it would have a similar effect, or there's something specific about the blue-green algae?
Yeah, well, spirulina is a blue-green algae, but that's not what we're talking about. Spirulina, we tested it, did not have an effect or anything significant really on stem cells. Wow. Chlorella does not. So in AFA, so this is Aphanizomenon flos aqua, AFA. It's the blue-green algae that grows from Klamath Lake in Southern Oregon. So that product specifically contains an L-selectin blocker, which downregulates one of the receptor in the bone marrow that plays a role. It gets complicated if I get into the whole description, but it basically downregulates the ability of stem cells to cling to the bone marrow environment. It works in a different way, but in a way like GCSF, like a weaker version of GCSF.
Okay. And so now we went through all the main ingredients in your formula here, and you're putting all the top ingredients to increase stem cells. Let's list them just in order of the top three. I think you said blue-green algae. Which one was the 1, 2, and 3?
The top three would be Allomicroclada, sea buckthorn berry, and Panax notogensin. These would probably be the only hiccup with Panax notogensin is that these studies were done in mice. So all the rest I do in humans. So I'm talking real numbers. So if we put this one aside, I would say blue-green algae and fucoidan are on par.
Okay, but the
So
number one you would put as this unique aloe species. Okay, that's number one. Number two would be the sea buckthorn.
Sea buckthorn berry, number two.
And then the number three is like
AFA,
which one did you choose?
are on par.
And Panax notoginseng is below that.
I don't know. The data shows it strong, but the data is different because it was done in mice. So it's hard to compare with the other ingredients. All the other ingredients were studies in humans.
Got it. Okay, so it's mainly there's aloe species number one, the sea buckthorn berry number two, and then 3 and 4 the fucoidan and the AFA, blue-green algae. Is there any concerns with the blue-green algae with certain kinds of toxins?
Because not one bit at all. This is all stuff that is put on the web by people who just don't know what they're talking about. I've been in this for a long time.
Do you guys test it for said toxins? Or
Of course. Of course. I developed in 1996, 1997, the whole quality control for that industry. I was the person who was working directly with the FDA when all these stories came out. We brought these stories in the open for education. Some people just took the information, ran with it on the web, ran with it in different ways, and it became a story that really was never a story. But everything is tested. It's probably the supplement that you will consume that is the most tested.
Okay, interesting. And how much is a supplement for? Let's see, how many pills do you take for these things?
If you take about this blend that we have called Stem Regen, you take 2 capsules of this, and with all the science that we have, you will release, I say on average, 10 million stem cells within 2-3 hours. But we need to realize it's really a minimum, and it's at one time. Stem cells are being really migrate into tissues. So we take a reading at, let's say, 2-3 hours, and we can say you've increased about 10 million stem cells in circulation. But it's hard to tell how many is the actual total of stem cells. 15, 20, hard to tell.
And how many pills do you need to take of this thing?
If you,
Powder? It's
if you
pills,
release,
right?
if you take 2 capsules, you release 10 million. If you don't have any problem, it's plenty. You do this every day, it's plenty.
Right.
Past, let's say 30, 40, it's plenty to keep the health that you have right now for decades to come. If you have something that is more serious, let me put it this way. We are doing a study right now on heart disease. So chronic stable congestive heart failure. It's an ongoing study, but we're submitting a paper now for publication with the first 10 patients. 10 patients, stable chronic heart failure. After 6 months, all 10 have regained normal heart function. So they're releasing it every day, but they did 2 capsules 3 times a day. We have another ongoing study on Parkinson. So far in this study, I just analyzed a few days ago the first 7 patients. And out of these first 7 patients, we get very significant, like about 50% reduction in motor symptoms, probably 30, 40% reduction in depression, about 60% improvement in quality of life. So stem cells repair. If you take 2, 3 times a day, you can have a real impact on the body's ability to repair.
Is there any negatives for taking stem cells, for increasing stem cells?
Not known to this date.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, sounds good. Yeah, this has been a very interesting podcast. I learned some new things here, quite a few. Where can people find more of your work? And yeah.
On our website, which is stemregen.co, so stemregen.co. You go on Instagram, TikTok at StemCellChristian, and I answer lots of questions like every week. So you can get information in there as well.
Okay, that's really cool. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming on.
My pleasure.
All right, awesome. 67% of listeners aren't subscribed to the show, so please don't forget to show your support by hitting the subscribe button now. You'll not only be supporting the show, but also investing in yourself and your health journey, all while helping to keep us ad-free.